Kinetic military action is a term used to describe military action involving active warfare, including lethal force. It is used to contrast between conventional military, kinetic action from soft force increasingly used against enemies, including diplomacy, sanctions and cyber warfare. The authorization for the use of military force, including kinetic military action, is typically given by Congress. Congressional authorizations for the use of military force allow the President to lead a military campaign consistent with the scope defined by Congress. Some examples of authorizations for use of military force, AUMF, include the 2001 AUMF passed by Congress on September 14, 2001, which authorizes the President to use all necessary and appropriate force against those nations, organizations, or persons he determines planned, authorized, committed, or aided the terrorist attacks that occurred on September 11, 2001, or harbored such organizations or persons. 1. Another example is the 2002 Iraq AUMF. Is there something else you would like to know? Received message. Some examples of authorizations for use of military force, AUMF, include the 2001 AUMF passed by Congress on September 14, 2001, which authorizes the President to use all necessary and appropriate force against those nations, organizations, or persons he determines planned, authorized, committed, or aided the terrorist attacks that occurred on September 11, 2001, or harbored such organizations or persons. Another example is the 2002 Iraq AUMF. The 2001 Authorization for Use of Military Force, AUMF, is a joint resolution of the United States Congress which became law on September 18, 2001. It authorizes the use of the United States Armed Forces against those responsible for the September 11 attacks. The authorization granted the President the authority to use all necessary and appropriate force against those whom he determined planned, authorized, committed or aided the September 11 attacks, or who harbored said persons or groups. Some examples of authorizations for use of military force, AUMF, include the 2001 AUMF and the 2002 Iraq AUMF. These are statutory force authorizations passed by Congress to authorize limited wars. The War Powers Resolution, also known as the War Powers Resolution of 1973 or the War Powers Act, is a federal law intended to check the U.S. President's power to commit the United States to an armed conflict without the consent of the U.S. Congress. The resolution requires the President to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces to military action and forbids armed forces from remaining for more than 60 days, with a further 30-day withdrawal period, without congressional authorization for use of military force, AUMF, or a declaration of war by the United States. The effectiveness of the War Powers Resolution has been a subject of debate. When passed, Congress intended the War Powers Resolution to halt the erosion of Congress's ability to participate in war-making decisions. However, this resolution has not been as effective as Congress likely intended. The War Powers Resolution has not been as effective as Congress likely intended when it was passed. One reason for this is that no president has accepted the constitutionality of the War Powers Act, viewing it as a violation of the separation of powers and the President's authority as Commander-in-Chief. Congress can authorize military action through a formal declaration of war or through a statutory authorization for the use of military force, AUMF. An AUMF is a joint resolution passed by both houses of Congress and signed into law by the President. It authorizes the President to use military force in a specific situation or against a specific enemy.